All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our BCBA practice question series, where we're going through another set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. When you pass the exam, please let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. Ray wants his daughter to be more positive, so he has her start saying positive affirmations out loud. Ray tells his daughter that if she says 2 positive affirmations out loud each day for a week, then he will give her $20. Once that is accomplished, Ray changes it from 2 to 3. What type of differential reinforcement does this resemble? So we've got a differential reinforcement question, and if you are studying and focused on your fluency, differential reinforcement questions should be pretty straightforward. The only ones that might get a little confusing are the diminishing versus lower rate of differential reinforcement, but the other 4 are pretty straightforward. In this case, what is Ray trying to accomplish? Well, he wants his daughter to say more positive affirmations. So he sets a criterion, 2 out loud each day for a week. He then changes that criterion or increases that criterion from 2 to 3. So what is Ray trying to accomplish with this differential reinforcement procedure? Well, he wants the behavior to increase. And so if we have a behavior that's present that we want to increase, what type of differential reinforcement are we using here? A, differential reinforcement of alternative behaviors. Now be careful. Ray does want his daughter to be more positive, which you might say is an alternative to whatever the other behavior is, but that's not what the target behavior is as far as differential reinforcement goes. Ray is trying to increase the amount of positive affirmations said each day. So he's not using an alternative differential reinforcement procedure since he set this criterion that's going higher and higher. He's not using a DRO because with the DRO, we are reinforcing in the absence of a behavior. And in this case, Ray's daughter is going to be reinforced when the behavior occurs. It's not a DRD because we're not trying to reduce the number of positive affirmations. What's taking place is a DRH, a differential reinforcement of higher rates of behavior. Ray sets a criterion. If his daughter achieves the criterion, she gets reinforced, and then he makes that criterion higher and higher. He's trying to increase the rate of the behavior. In this case, he's trying to increase the number of positive affirmations said out loud each day for a week. Mail is delivered to specific addresses according to what is written on the package or envelope. If the mail carrier wants to effectively deliver the mail, then what skill do they need to choose the right house? Very easy question. As we always talk about, if you get an easy question on the exam, don't overthink it, don't question it. See it as an opportunity to answer a question quickly and score some free points. Now, in this case, we need the mail carrier to effectively deliver the mail by choosing the right house. So, is the mail carrier worried about the different stimuli or the different responses? Well, the mail carrier is worried about the different stimuli. He has these different addresses that correspond to different houses. He needs to be able to discriminate between the houses, not so much differentiate between his responses, but discriminate between the houses. So if we look at A, stimulus discrimination, that's what's going to help the mailman the most, or the mail carrier the most here. The ability to discriminate between the stimuli, in this case, the houses. When we talk about response differentiation, at that point, we're focused on different responses. There's a chance the mail carrier may need to engage in different responses, but as far as we're concerned, we're only worried about one response, and that is delivering the mail. We're worried about delivering it to the right houses, which requires discrimination. Generalization may be necessary, but if the carrier delivers to the same houses every day, it might not be as necessary. Either way, if we're looking for the best answer to answer the question, which is how will the mail carrier identify the right house, that's going to be stimulus discrimination. And then D, prompting. Prompting is a irrelevant answer choice. We're not talking about prompting at all. Don't overthink answer choices that make no sense. Prompting does not fit here whatsoever. In this case, the mail carrier needs to have the ability to discriminate between stimuli in order to choose the right house. Amelia's aunt sets up a water slide outside for Amelia to play with during the day. Once the slide is complete, Amelia's aunt says, "Okay, let's slide," and demonstrates how to use the slide. Amelia then follows her down the slide. What type of prompt did the aunt use? Okay, another pretty straightforward question. We are looking at the type of prompt that the aunt used. So the first thing we want to do is identify the prompt. We know Amelia's aunt set this water slide up. When completed, Amelia's aunt gave the SD, "Okay, let's slide," and then prompted by demonstrating how to use the slide. Amelia followed. So our prompt is the aunt demonstrating how to use the slide. And for a lot of prompting questions, that's going to be the most challenging part. What is the prompt? In this case, demonstrating how to use the slide. That's our prompt. So what type of prompt is it? A partial physical. Did Amelia's aunt physically prompt Amelia? She did not. Physical prompts require some sort of physical contact with the learner. That's not what occurred here. What about a movement prompt? Well, a movement prompt is another way to say a gestural prompt. And with a gestural prompt, we have these motor movements, these subtle motor movements, a point, a flick, something along those lines, where we're just trying to signal essentially with a brief motor movement what we're trying to get the learner to do. It's not a big movement. If we're looking at a big movement or actually demonstrating or doing the behavior itself, then we're modeling. So by demonstrating how to use the slide, Amelia's aunt modeled how to use the slide. And then the verbal, there is no verbal prompt. The SD was verbal. The prompt was not. Since Amelia's aunt demonstrated exactly how to use the slide, she modeled how to use the slide, and the prompt the aunt used was C, modeling. A behavior analyst is evaluating two different interventions to reduce self-injurious behavior in a client. Intervention A involves a complex combination of reinforcement schedules, sensory integration therapy, and pharmacological treatment. Intervention B involves a simple differential reinforcement of other behavior schedule. According to Parsimony, which intervention should the behavior analyst choose to implement first and why? So be very careful here, because when we're talking about ideas like dimensions or attitudes, we want to be very precise because they're testing you on your understanding of this specific idea of parsimony. So be very careful that we're not getting too in the weeds in these questions. Question is simply saying, according to parsimony, what intervention should we choose first? And so what does parsimony say? Parsimony says that the simplest explanation is often right. So if we're going to go according to parsimony, we're going to want to choose the simple path. We have intervention A, which is complex. It has different reinforcement schedules, integration therapy, pharmacological treatment, all kind of different ideas. Intervention B is much more simple. So if we're going to go with parsimony, what intervention should we choose first? A, intervention A, because it addresses multiple factors that might contribute to the self-injurious behavior. While possibly true, we're just trying to be parsimonious. We're trying to go with the simple explanation first. B, intervention A, because more complex interventions are typically more effective. Well, that's one, not necessarily true. You can have a very simple intervention, which is more effective than a complex intervention, so B is out. C, intervention B, because simpler interventions are easier to implement and assess for effectiveness. Again, not always true. We can't just assume because the intervention is simple that it's easy to implement and assess. So C is making a lot of assumptions. That leaves us with D, intervention B, because it is the simplest intervention. And that's really what we're looking for here. We're just talking about parsimony. Parsimony says going to go with the simple explanation first. So if we want to be parsimonious, pick B because it is more simple as stated in the question itself. Very careful on attitude and dimension questions that you're not overthinking it or getting in the weeds. Just answer the question that's asked of you because they're trying to test your knowledge of the attitudes and of the dimensions. Verbal behavior is evoked by certain types of discriminative stimuli. Of the following answer choices, which type of verbal behavior is not evoked by a verbal SD? Okay, pretty straightforward verbal behavior questions. Not too challenging. We're looking for the type of verbal behavior not, read carefully, evoked by a verbal SD. Is A, an interverbal evoked by a verbal SD? Of course, interverbal is that conversation, answering questions, that back and forth. It's going to be a speaker and a listener, like with all verbal behavior, and the verbal behavior is evoked by that verbal SD. What about B, tact? A tact is kind of like a label. With tacting, we have a non-verbal SD evoking the behavior. B looks good. Read C. A textual. With a textual, you're essentially reading something that is also evoked by a verbal SD. And then D, a transcription. You are transcribing or writing something out that's also evoked by a verbal SD. Of the answer choices, the type of verbal behavior not evoked by a verbal SD, it's going to be B, tact. Thank you so much for watching. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. When you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. We'll see you soon.